Caz is, it's difficult to know how to describe Caz. I think live wire is my current summary. I'm delighted that she was awarded the 100 Women in Cycling last year. She's clearly a complete enthusiast for all things bikes, and by extension, in a way, how more women should get on bikes. She's a writer and presenter, and cycled off to Amsterdam to give a presentation at the Cargo Bike Festival there in November. And I think probably the best description is a champion for women on bikes. So we very much look forward to hearing her experience in encouraging, well, everybody, but in particular women to get on e-bikes in particular, but I'm sure it's a wider remit. I'm going to stop sharing there. And
okay, hello everybody. Thank you for such a lovely welcome, Andy, and for Liz and Ben for inviting me along, having all met at the Cargo Bike Festival. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my presentation? Yeah, all good? Still there? I just pressed another button. I can see you
all
guys.
Good. No, you've done it.
Good. Oh, good. Okay. So yeah, so as I said, thanks so much for that introduction, Andy. That's really nice. And yeah, cycling has been a massive part of my life for the last 16 years. I'm founder of Cycle Chic. So I started Cycle Chic 16 years ago, really on a mission to encourage and enable more women to cycle. And then more recently, I've joined forces with Georgia, who is the lady on the with the Brompton bike, working out on the right hand side. And we're kind of bringing our two businesses together, Cycle Chic and Loud Mobility, to work collaboratively on projects that really shift the dial in terms of sustainable transport across the board, to ensure that sustainable journeys are more joyful and accessible for all. So we met about a year ago, and I had this plan for this campaign or project called She's Electric. It was kind of all in my head at that point. And as we kind of explored it together, the idea grew and grew. So that's really what this presentation is going to be about today, about the She's Electric campaign, what it is, what we hope it will achieve, and maybe opening up a discussion of how we can work with you at Cyclox on some of our activities this year. So also just to say, this presentation was funded by FIT, which is the Foundation for Integrated Transport. So yeah, it was fantastic support that we've had to build this presentation and then deliver it out to people. So She's Electric campaign is all about inspiring and enabling more women to cycle as their mode of transport through e-bikes and e-cargo bikes. So is that worked for everybody? The next slide, you can all see it? Yeah, great, thanks guys. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my journey and how I came into cycling and how it became not just a mode of transport for me, but my kind of job and my career, and you know, so much of my kind of inspiration about how we make this mode of transport more mainstream, and particularly to women. So I started back in 2007. I really wanted to cycle to work, but there were so many barriers for me. I lived in London, I didn't drive. The thought of getting on a bike on a busy London road was just terrified me. And really, I was kind of thinking to myself, is it a safe thing to do? Like, I don't know how a roundabout works. I'm not sure how safe that is. But anyway, I felt really drawn to it because I really wanted to be more active. I wanted to be more eco. There were so many things that appealed, but there were so many barriers. So as I say, I had this kind of combination of frustration and inspiration. And the thing that really tipped me over the edge and enabled me to kind of get over those barriers and get a bike and get started was seeing a woman looking amazing on a bike in Battersea Park. She just cycled past me wearing a dress on a vintage bike, and I was like, oh my goodness, wow, I want to look like that, or just seeing someone that resonated with me and an image that appealed to me. So I bought a secondhand bike, I had some free cycle training, and I kind of started on my journey. And I was just, you know, I loved it. And I really felt that if more women had this image that appealed to them and could overcome these barriers, we could really open it up. But so many women at that time particularly, and still now, just don't necessarily think that cycling is for them. So really that's when Cycle Chic was born. And Cycle Chic started as a blog, but then I sort of turned it into a business and identified that the gap in the market was very much accessories, stylish accessories that looked great but functioned well. So we sell a range of accessories, from bike helmets to panniers to waterproofs, and you know, it's been a fantastic journey through the business of Cycle Chic. Just getting that traction, presenting cycling in this different way, it really struck a chord. And the third picture here is my business partner at the time, Lavinia, and I on the front cover of the Observer review. You know, it was just such great exposure, and we had a lot of really fantastic press just around this story of presenting cycling in a more feminine, stylish way. And then in 2014, I wrote a book called The Girls Bicycle Handbook, and this was really building on the work of both giving useful advice for women for getting started, combined with offering an attractive images and an inviting picture of what cycling could be. And then more recently, last year, you know, it'd been quite a long time since I started the business, and I was feeling like I needed something new, and I needed to kind of get more traction and, you know, find the next thing that would really shift the dial and get more women on bikes. And this was around the time that I started to notice that a lot of our customers were riding electric bikes, and I would speak to customers on the phone, and I'd be kind of like, oh, you know, regular bike or electric bike, and just more and more so women were saying, oh yeah, e-bike, definitely. So women were switching to e-bikes, but women were also starting out with e-bikes, and stories that I was hearing were that, oh, if it wasn't for the e-bike, I wouldn't be able to commute to work. I wouldn't be able to, we have one customer who has mobility issues, and she can't cycle on a regular bike, but she can with a modified e-bike, and she can cycle. And just there was many stories about how real life sort of stories about how women were being truly enabled by electric bikes. So this kind of just really interested me, and that's really where the idea for She's Electric was born. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the gender gap in cycling, and it'd be interesting to find out if it's any different in Oxford, because I know that you have like a good cycling community there, whether there's more women than in other places, but, you know, really across the board, in demographics from age group to age group. I mean, you can just see by this graph, which is cycling trips per person per year by age and gender, you know, an average of 7 per year for women versus 24 for men. So just those numbers are just so sort of dramatically different, and only 11% of women cycle versus 24% of men. You know, so it is a problem, but also, like, the eternal optimist in me is like, it's an opportunity, because if we can tap into those missing chunks on the graph, you know, and bring them up level to men, then, you know, we can really go mainstream with this mode of transport. And I think this is a really key point, that if cycling, in order for cycling and e-cycling to become mainstream, we have to have that balance of men and women, because so long as we have this big gender gap, it's just no way it can become mainstream, because obviously women are 50% of the population. But yeah, what are the benefits of cycling? And, you know, I'm sure there's many more than this, and I'm sure everyone on this call has their own reason why cycling has such benefits for them. But we know, in terms of the future of decarbonisation, and the future of transport, that this mode of transport could be incredibly important to reduce car use and to reduce emissions. Mental and physical health. Again, I know I probably don't need to tell everyone on this call, but there's just so many reasons why getting that level of activity into your day is so good for you, both mentally and physically. It's a social mode of transport. You know, I always love cycling because you say hello to people, people smile at you. My dad recently bought an electric trike, and he just says, everywhere he goes, people wave at him, and I just love that. So I think there is that feel-good social aspect, and it reduces congestion in our towns, in our cities, and for healthier, happier streets. So if it's so wonderful, you know, why isn't everyone doing it, and why are so many women staying away? And this was a piece of research that I did quite early on when I started Cycle Chic. I spoke to lots of women about, and I asked the question, you know, do you cycle? And so many of them said no, but they would often say, I would love to cycle, but. So there was often like an enthusiasm and a want to cycle, but there was reasons why they felt that they couldn't. And I kind of sectioned these into 3 different departments. Safety, always the biggest one. Fear of cycling on the roads amongst traffic. It was my biggest fear initially. Fear of cycling at night time, you know, and there's safety is kind of a big area, but predominantly cycling amongst traffic. And this is where we really need to see a shift overall, that cycling becomes a valid mode of transport on the road, and it's not just sidelined by the cars and the kind of motor vehicles. The FAF factor. So FAF factor is an eclectic barrier, which basically is anything to do with why a bike is more hassle or more of a faff than another mode of transport. And you know, we've all got busy lives, and we need to get the kids to school, get to work, or wherever it is we need to get to. We're usually going to go for what is the easiest mode of transport. And if there's something that takes extra hassle, whether that's where your bike is stored and getting it out, what you have to wear, how you're going to carry things, where you're going to park, anything that makes it more difficult and a faff, again, presents a barrier for adoption. And image, I mean, we talked about this a little while ago, but you know, there has been progress in the image of cycling from kind of a very lycra, male orientated image. There has been progress, but I think still many women don't quite identify that cycling could be for them, or could be a mode of transport for them. And a lot of our work through She's Electric is really trying to shift that image of what cycling is and what e-cycling is, because it's a fantastic opportunity for this mode of transport, which is very kind of evolving and growing. So why do e-bikes work better for women? Why are e-bikes an enabler? And I touched on this a little bit with some examples of our customers, but for me personally, I was just amazed at how much safer I felt riding on. And I think sometimes people might think that electric bikes, oh, they're going to go faster, you're going to go whizzing off, you're going to lose control, and you know, and it's not going to be safe. But actually, when you ride one, they feel super stable and secure. And just having that e-assist to get you going prevents those kind of wobbles of getting started, you know, going up hills. It's so much easier, and you have such a nice, stable, steady ride, particularly with brands like Turn, where you have a lower center of gravity, so getting your feet down is easier. And just, yeah, cycling with children, for me, that was, I was finding it difficult to cycle on a regular bike with my daughter as she got older, getting her up on the seat, getting up the hill. It felt really hard work and not that safe. So I think it's really important that we look at why the e-bike is safer for women, and project that out to show that this is a way that you might not completely overcome that safety barrier, but it's a huge help. And this was a post that I put on LinkedIn, and I was really pleased that it got such a positive response from loads of women who came with other reasons as to why the e-bike felt safer. And it was a really great kind of chat to explore that topic. And obviously the Sustrans stat there, 83% of women in the UK reported feeling more confident and empowered after riding an e-bike. So yeah, so all of this kind of came together in my head, and I was all these wonderful stories from my customers and my own experience of really feeling enabled by using an e-bike, finding I could do so much more on it. And I thought, how do we get this out, and how do we share this with more women and get these stories out there that can then inspire women, and they can, you know, see that this is something that they could try themselves. So we reached out to our Cycle Chic customer base and our network, and we asked role models to come forward, and we got some fantastic women coming forward to share their stories. Cargo bike mama from New York down here, who travels all around New York with her 3 children, amazing role model. My business partner Georgia here on a Volt bike. Kate Ball at the top, who has the Brompton, which she cleverly has customized to attach a wheelchair to the back, and she has mobility issues, and she's just extraordinary how she uses this combination to get around and overcome those mobility issues. So yeah, it was just fantastic to tell these stories, and we just realized that, you know, this idea of role models has been very intrinsic to all the work that I've done. You know, women, not just women, but it's very important in terms of behavior change, that people see themselves or see something that is inspirational and resonates with them, for them to then go, okay, this could be something for me, this could be something that I could do, and this is something that I want to do because I'm seeing someone I admire or I identify with doing it. So we started the kind of digital role model campaign on Cycle Chic, and then at the same time Georgia and I were saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have an event where we just have loads of e-bikes and we just invite women to come and try them out. And it was fortunate at that time, I was working with the local council where I live in Faversham on a Cycle Fest event. So I kind of ran the idea past them, could we have a She's Electric session? And you know, they were really up for it. And it worked incredibly well because we tied it in with this whole Cycle Fest 10 days. And so there was various different events going on, but this was our big sort of community cycle day in our local park. And it was fantastic. We just got so many women came along, and a real broad range. So 75% were trying an e-bike for the very first time, had never tried one before. So really kind of like just reaching people who perhaps it wasn't even on their radar, or they just had a little bit of interest, but that's a really key part of the campaign. But then also people who were completely ready to buy an e-bike and like had heard about the event and wanted to come and try, and were, you know, just ready to get going on one. So a great broad range of women at different stages, and 100% of the women who tried the e-bikes at the event said they would be more likely to e-cycle since the event. So it was just really reaffirming that this event model combined with the promotion was a good kind of combination to encourage more and engage with more women. So the key demographics from the event, and we're just kind of looking at certain particular demographics where the e-bike works particularly well and is particularly useful in day-to-day life. We established that women 20s to 40s with young children is a fantastic way to get around for those nursery drops, school runs, when kids are that little still, it can be quite challenging of how to get them around. I'm sure any parents here will know that, you know, when they're on their own bikes and their own scooters or walking, it can just take forever. And e-bike is a really quick, efficient and fun way to get younger children around. And this was a family who came to one of our events with their little 7-month-old, and they're planning, you know, they're kind of almost planning it like a replacement for the car, of this is how they're going to commute to work and get the little one to nursery. So it was really great to see these families sort of incorporating it into their lives and their transport. Women 50, 60 plus, we had a great attendance in this age group of women who really care about their health and fitness, have a bit more time on their hands, and yeah, it was really interesting as well to see their reactions at the event. A lot of women really were drawn to the low step-through frames that you can see here in the Benno bike, and just an e-bike that they felt was really easy to get on and get off. And we had some lovely stories of women who hadn't cycled for years, who came along and were kind of whizzing around the field on the e-bike. So yeah, it was just great to have these really deep engagements with a different range of women. And teenagers and young people, and I put a question mark here because you know, it's not currently the market for e-bikes. It tends to be much more kind of 30 or 20, 30s plus really, but it's an interesting demographic because this feels like the generation that it will have a huge impact if we change their transport behavior as they come to an age where are they going to rush out and pass their driving test and then use the car throughout their life, or is there another way? You know, is the e-bike a form of transport they can use to get to their first job and to get to college and not necessarily feel like the car is the only answer? And this, to me, in terms of mass behavior change in our transport landscape, just feels like a really interesting demographic, and we're hoping to work with a company to engage with schools. And we did this event in Thanet actually, which there was loads of kids there and teenagers, and they just loved it. I mean, they were queuing up, and we had to sort of get them all to form an orderly line, and I had to sort of get my I'm not a teacher, but the enthusiasm was there, and they absolutely loved it. So it's an interesting demographic in the future of you know, how we can engage and target them. So the She's Electric plan for the future, as I said at the beginning, I've joined forces with Loud Mobility now, and we really want to make this into a national behaviour change campaign. We're working at the moment on our kind of media campaign, and actually next Tuesday we've got a photo shoot with 8 wonderful role models who they're going to be coming here to our office, and we're going to photograph them looking amazing on their e-bikes, and that will form very much the part of our media campaign, which we'll be promoting out to the press but also online. And another link that I'll put in the chat at the end is our new website, she'selectric.org, which will have all this information and promotion on it. We want to run a series of national engagement events targeting our key demographics, or anyone who wants to come and try an e-bike. And we have a big London launch event, which I'll talk about in a minute, to kick that off. And then we hope to work with local authorities to bring the event model to a wider community. We're talking to a few local authorities, and actually Oxford, we had a few conversations with people at Oxford, so again it'd be great to chat to people about that afterwards. Yeah, so we can bring the event model to a wider demographic, a wider catchment in different areas. We want to record the data to understand women's barriers to cycling so we can inform action and policy, and whether that's campaigning for subsidies or better infrastructure, whatever it is. We really want this to be underpinned by data so we can really make a difference, and also record the data that are from the events. You know, is it having impact? Are we converting people? Does this work for women? And also work with the industry to influence innovation and vehicle design to benefit more women. And this is really key, because we have to create vehicles that work for women, and maybe not just a regular e-bike doesn't work for a wide range of women. So what other designs are out there? So yeah, a massive part of the campaign is overcoming barriers. So overcoming image by projecting this picture on the left of a woman using it as a mode of transport and looking great, rather than people thinking of cycling as being about you know, head down road cycling, and that's a huge part of our role model campaign. And again, this was what I was in terms of vehicle design. This was me in a indie hop coupe at the bottom at the Cargo Bike Festival, which is a fantastic e-cargo bike. It was absolutely beautiful to ride, and just looking at this innovation of design of e-bikes that have some of the benefits of cars that people value but are not cars, you know. And I think this area is really interesting to explore, and giving people a chance to try these kind of e-bikes, e-cargo bikes in this kind of evolving sector. But yeah, exactly. Just trying to find ways for people to move away from that habitual car use for the school run. You know, what are the other options out there? So yeah, talking about events, we have our big launch event in London from the 18th to the 21st of April. And we'll be, it's a free event. There's a trade day on the 19th, which has a cost attached to it, but the consumer days, which are the weekend, are 100% free. And we're really fortunate to be running our engagement event with a range of, working with a few different brands to have a range of different e-bikes available on a closed road in the Granary Square area in King's Cross, which is an amazing, vibrant, fully pedestrianised area. And we're going to have a team there helping women, answering questions, showing them how the bikes work, and just giving people a chance to try. So yeah, so that's a super exciting kickoff for us for the event programme this year. And, you know, as I said, we hope to work with a range of different people on this campaign, brands and industry, local authorities, community groups and advocacy organisations like yourself, press and influencers and research partners. And these are just a few companies and organisations who we're currently working with. So yeah, it would be great to find ways to work with Cyclox and see if we can bring the events to Oxford, and really find ways to encourage and enable more women to cycle and try out e-bikes. And actually, it's worth adding, I hadn't put this in the slides, but also trying to find ways to overcome the cost barrier, which was a big question that came up when I first did this presentation. And whilst I don't 100% have the answer to that, we are talking with a few local authorities about subsidised subscription models, so whereby it doesn't have to be an outright purchase. Following on from an event, someone can hire, you know, pay a monthly subscription which is subsidised to get going on an e-bike. So these are all things to explore. So yeah, thank you so much for listening today. So Cycle Chic is my current business, which actually we're kind of winding down as we become one business under the name of Loud Mobility. And the link I didn't put on here is she'selectric.org, but I can add that in later. But thanks so much for listening, and really happy to chat and say hello and answer any questions. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Caz. That is inspirational, and clearly you've got a busy year ahead of you.
Yes.
And we have talked about a sort of e-bike festival, and there are various initiatives in Oxford that loan e-bikes to people, but it's very, very small numbers, and actually quite difficult to move on from the loan because, as you say, there's cost and security. I mean, clearly you've had a lot of traction in Kent. One question I had was, do you involve local bike shops, or is it the manufacturers? How do you get the e-bikes for people to try?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a good question. We've worked directly with the brands until now, but we're totally exploring all options, and we feel if we came to a particular town, city, we'd very much want to work with the local retailers, because obviously that works for the local people, that works for the local businesses. So that's all kind of very much kind of an exploration for us as we work with different locations. And actually in Kent, we gave the option to the local bike shop to work with us, but they weren't that interested, which, you know, some local bike shops are up for a change, some aren't. So that's kind of interesting. And with some of the brands, we could retail them directly through Cycle Chic, but I'm not sure if that's something that we'll do ongoing. And a few of the brands who are kind of working with us have their own network of retailers who we can refer people to. So we think it's going to be a bit of a mixture throughout, depending on which event we're kind of running and where it is.
Yeah. Steve has got his hand up, and I've unmuted you, or given you the potential to unmute. And so if people would like to ask a question, do raise your hand. And Lucy, would you butt in if you see people or if you have got questions coming up? So and yeah, Liz, I think as well. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't think I managed to turn the camera on, so here we are. Yeah, thank you, Caz. Very interesting. As Andy says, there is a small e-bike lending scheme in Oxford, which I've been part of, and I'm just really interested to hear your thoughts on the cost barrier, because we've successfully lent some really reasonably nice e-bikes to people, and if for those who can afford to buy one, it's been extremely successful, and most of them go ahead and buy one. More recently, with the help of the council, and in fact, John, I think, is on this call, so he may butt in as well. We've been lending bikes to people who have, with some sort of disability, long-term healthcare, or the more deprived areas of Oxford, and many of them simply cannot and nowhere near afford an e-bike, and I'm sure John would be very interested to hear about any thoughts you have on councils and a lease scheme. He may want to talk to you about that offline, but anything else you can say on that front would be great, please.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, yeah, it's such a huge barrier, and if we're going to, for the She's Electric campaign to be successful and for us to achieve our mission to make this mode of transport accessible for all, it has to be addressed. And I'm not saying that we have the answers 100% yet, but I think what would be excellent is if we could follow suit from Europe, from the US, from Canada, where they have localized substantial subsidy schemes in particular areas, but they've been hugely successful. So I think collectively campaigning, and what we hope to do through this is collate that kind of data that shows that X amount of women came to our events, but the big barrier we are seeing is cost, as you are, and collecting that data to kind of put that case forward that subsidies would enable huge amounts of people, and we're just really exploring options with local. We had a meeting actually with someone today who runs a program called I can't remember what it's called, but it's a program where you can try. It sounds similar to what you're doing. You can just try the bike and subscribe, and then the money that you pay to subscribe then goes towards the purchase over time. Is that the model you do, Steve? Is there a kind of
no, ours are actually free at the moment because the council is subsidising them, but when we take the bike away after, whether it be 8 weeks or 12 weeks, people are extremely upset. And often they won't transfer to an ordinary bike because it's not practical or it's not as good fun. It's completely different, as we know. So they're stuck. And we're trying to see whether there's sources of good reconditioned, good quality second-hand e-bikes, but have failed yet to find anything that really comes up to the to the requirements.
I mean, we've got one company who we're talking to who are second-hand specialists, and they're a kind of marketplace for second-hand bikes called Moose. And I think that obviously there's still an upfront cost, but perhaps as those kind of companies become more, as the whole market evolves, there will hopefully be a low-cost second-hand, more access to low-cost second-hand. But I do think the key is some serious government investment, and I know that's not an easy answer.
No, they seem to be going the opposite direction at the moment.
But yeah, I think let's all work on it together. I don't have the answers. I mean, does Oxford, would they ever fund long-term use for people, or is this seen as very much it's a taster to get people into it and then buy it themselves?
Well, those who can buy it themselves, that's fine, but those who can't, it's impossible. John may want to comment on that. I'll leave that to him.
Yeah. Well, Liz, were you going to chip in on that?
I was actually. Thank you. Yeah, so good. So good to speak to you again. And I had three kind of questions to ask. The first is particularly about this. I mean, we have the Cycle to Work scheme across the country, which enables a lot of people to buy a bike, including e-bikes. But then what happens? I mean, that particularly discriminates against women. Sorry, I'm going to sound really sexist for a bit. But when you're looking at going on to maternity leave, lo and behold, your income's going to go through the floor. You may not even be able to keep your job. And also you're looking at childcare. You just mentioned, Caz, about national lobbying. We need a cycle to childcare scheme. As soon as you have a baby, you can have a cycle to childcare scheme. The childcare bike, you know, that it doesn't matter which member of the family is taking the child to childcare. It is a cycle to childcare bike. And that's what we need, because at the moment the Cycle to Work scheme, it's a fantastic scheme, and obviously there are lots of women using it as well, but it really kind of narrows the number of women that can use it around that crucial time of when you really need an e-bike, which is when you're just having a baby. So if we can all kind of promote the Cycle to Childcare scheme, which is as soon as you become a parent, you get a Cycle to Childcare scheme, like kind of promoted by the government, all those same wonderful tax benefits, a little bit less regressive maybe than the Cycle to Work scheme would be great. Happy to talk with you about that more in the future. Affordability. Sorry?
It's a great idea. I absolutely love it.
And that's kind of even up the childcare versus work thing. Let's remember that childcare is also a job, so we can also cycle to it. May I ask two other quick questions as well? Obviously, you know, I've always loved buying stuff from Cycle Chic. That's always been fantastic. I've even browsed your website loads when I didn't need any extra bike kit, but I always just wanted to know what there was out there. But two extra quick things. One question about security and another question about style. So one thing I think that puts women off cycling and also cycling further distances is, oh gosh, what happens if the bike breaks down or I get a puncture or something or other like that, and I get stuck in the dark on my own or with the kids somewhere. The car industry has sorted this. They've got the AA and the RAC. Do we have an equivalent for bikes? Do we have a we will pick you and your kids up, or we will pick you up? Now, I believe it's a long time since I've actually owned a car. And I'm not an RAC or an AA member anymore. ETA does. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Let's promote the hell out of this, especially for women who are looking at going with e-bikes. You can go further. Don't worry, you can get this. It's your RAC, but for your bike. Very last thing is style. Please, can we find a helmet that you can wear cycling somewhere with makeup on in the rain, so you don't arrive looking like a panda bear, but if you're arriving somewhere where you're going to have to arrive already looking smart, and that doesn't give you helmet hair for the rest of the day. It's kind of like the holy grail of cycling for lots of professional women, I know. Yeah, exactly. I think I may have found a French one. It looks a little bit like a moped thing, but it's got a visor that comes down over the front. So even if it's raining or windy, you don't end up with mascara all over the place. And again, I do think that's a barrier for women who are aware that they need to arrive somewhere looking groomed.
I mean, helmets have been like a massive part of my world. Sounds a bit wrong, but for like 16 years, and trying to find helmets that look nice, that feel comfortable, that are safe, and that can then like wind, rain getting in your face, and that don't mess your hair up. And you know, we've had a few brands over the years that the 1000 brand, the Burn brand we sold for many years, and they're not really around anymore, but the 1000 helmets are probably my best recommendation. They're beautifully made, and they have a peak. They're very lightweight, they're very comfortable. You don't really notice that you're wearing them. So they protect you a little bit from the wind and rain, and you don't get all hot and sweaty in them because they're super well ventilated, but they look nice. So I feel like they're the brand that have nailed it the most. But yeah, there's a few French brands that have the full visor thing, and I feel like it sometimes it's difficult because you don't want people to have to wear too much, you know, safety gear. It's like it's what's the balance of wearing something and feeling safe, or then feeling like you've got to wear so much that you feel uncomfortable or you feel like it's extra cost. So the helmet discussion is, oh, thank you, someone's put the 1,000 helmets up there. The helmet discussion is an interesting one, and actually from Cycle Sheet point of view, we found that women do feel safer wearing a helmet, and that's why it was a massive part of our product range. But then there's a kind of dream, isn't there, that eventually we'll be like the Europeans and no one will even have to worry about it. But I don't think we're there yet in the UK. So I think helmets are quite an important part of the journey for a lot of women, without a doubt. And looking in the mirror and thinking, yeah, I look okay in that, not like, oh my God, I look awful. You know, is important.
Well, moving on a little bit, Richard asks a question, and I'm just going to allow the mic. Richard, are you there? Should be. Hello, Richard. Is it Richard Scrace? I don't think he's put a question in the
chat or
chat. No, or maybe it was in the chat. This is a bit cheeky, but there's a lady in the audience called Susan, and if you can hear me, are you Susan Palmer? Who is? Oh, Richard is. Oh, well, right, thanks. Sorry, I guess it's just. I just wondered. Yes, thank you. If I could, you kindly emailed me and said that you were returning to cycling, and I'd be really interested to hear, but I am failing to unmute you. Wait a minute. Sorry about this. There we are. I think you may be able to unmute now, Susan, if you'd like. No. Is there an unmute button at the top? Oh, yeah.
And that was me. Sorry, Andy. I was going to say, in the meantime, while Susan's figuring that out, Richard has asked his question in the chat.
Oh, great.
Which is, can we encourage hire bike companies like Cargaroo?
It's Cogs. I may have a look. That's a hire company, is it?
Yeah. So they've the link is in the chat, but they've got I don't know if you've seen them in Hackney. I've seen them in Hackney. They're kind of like storage units with cargo bikes, and it kind of works like Line Bike or the kind of bike, those kinds of equivalents, except they're exclusively cargo bikes.
Oh yeah, fantastic. I feel like I should know more about them than I do. So firstly, thank you for alerting me to them. They look fantastic. So it's basically, yeah, cargo bikes that you can just hire whenever you want it, need it. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. There's one in Stoke Newington that I'm aware of, Stoke Newington High Street, if you're ever in that area.
Yeah, I think most definitely these kind of companies coming through are key to the transition, because you don't always need a cargo bike all the time, and the storage is difficult on them. Not everyone's got the space or a garage to put them in, and I think we haven't really talked about the shared mobility model much, but we're working actually with Lime as one of our partners on She's Electric to give that option of the shared model. Obviously it doesn't work for everyone because you have to live in a place where you've got access, and it's got to work for your commute or your journey to be able to pick it up as part of your journey rather than starting from home. But I'm in London at the moment, and the cycling through back to the station, it's amazing seeing the transformation from when I lived in London 10 years ago to how many people are using the Line bikes and the tier bikes, and what a broader demographic it brings, because it's quite different, and you don't have to buy outright. So I think any of those shared companies are brilliant, and thank you for alerting me to Cargaroo, is that right? They look awesome. So yeah, I think definitely, and moving away from, you know, that I guess we have a culture, don't we, to own things in this country, and we need to own our house, we need to own our car, we need to own our bike, and you know, if we can shift away from that, particularly with the younger generation who are more open to that and are more used to that, that's a really interesting step forward to not feeling like we have to own or buy, but we can hire when we need to if we've got access to it. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for that.
Very good. Well, Steve has got a hand up. Susan, have you found the little microphone thing at the top right?
Have you? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
I had my phone on earlier because I couldn't get that anywhere. I couldn't hear you at the beginning. Right. As I said, I'm returning to cycling after many years. I used to cycle in London as a student, and I think that was, and apart from the odd little commute from a car park to work with a fold-up bike, I felt I wanted to get back on a bicycle and get some more fresh air exercise, meet up with other people, and I joined ISIS Ladies in October. And I have thoroughly enjoyed getting out on the bike. It's given me the confidence to know that I can finish the ride, because I've got the power there as well. It's given me the confidence to know that I can actually get up the hill and keep up with people. And yeah, you mentioned safety earlier. It does feel safer. And I've loved it. I absolutely adore my bike.
That's amazing. And what kind of what kind of e-bike is it?
I've got integrated battery. It's a Trek Townie.
Okay, nice.
So it's very much a sit up and beg. I got arthritis in my wrists, so I can't put too much weight in that area. But I wasn't going to let that stop me cycling. I visited relatives in Holland last June, I think it was, and we borrowed an e-bike for a day, and it was fantastic. That got me going.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear, Susan. And I just love the way that you said, you know, the confidence that's given you, and that's definitely something, you know, we heard from our events and from our role models. It's just have that ease and that comfort to cycle, just then enables and releases that confidence, doesn't it, which is just going to make it a much more enjoyable experience rather than feeling worried or scared or not able to keep up, and that kind of worry. If you can kind of eradicate all of those, it's just it's
a very basic bike, you know, in a lot of ways. It's one of the cheapest ones, and I forgot what I was going to say about that bit now. Oh, never mind.
Well, thank you, Susan. I'm really pleased, that you've been able to join us, and also in a way that you're exactly the person that Caz is talking about, that, you know, this has felt such an enabler. So, and I just see that Christian Monden has suggested, Caz, that if we do arrange something locally, that you may be able to help involve the university at their Sustainability Day.
Okay.
Steve. Steve.
Yeah, sorry to butt in again. I can't seem to be able to type anything in the chat, so I asked, otherwise I'll put some of my comments in there. But I go down the bottom. There's actually, I can read all the chat, but I can't enter anything. So thank you for the people with all the suggestions in there. Just very quickly, the Cycle to Work scheme is useful, but it's not that great for those who are not on PAYE, those who are unemployed, and particularly and if they're on very low wages, it's not really appropriate. So we're looking at the category below that sort of income level. And just in case anyone does want help on trying out an e-bike, I wonder if Andy, can you put cyclability.org in the chat so people can see the address, because
well, Lucy will do it.
We run our sessions twice a week, but we have step through electric bikes, we've got folding electric bikes, we've got a long tail, and we've also got one with a switch kit. So people actually want to just come and try them out, or learn how to cycle, or learn, you know, they're very welcome to attend one of our sessions. So if you've got the link there. So thanks Lucy. And so that's the local source, and obviously that links into also the city council scheme, which is John's in charge of as well. Okay, that's enough for me.
And Steve, we can link to that. So as we our She's Electric kind of website, when it's fully ready, we're going to have a kind of resources section, so we could definitely link to you there and point any women in the area to come and you know, come to one of your sessions, and you know, yeah, maybe we could collaborate on a session or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you.
Great.
Well, I'm not seeing any more questions.
Andy,
So
sorry,
Lucy, yeah.
Alison has been putting some questions in the Q&A section. Thank you, Alison. One of the ones that she's asked, Alison, do you want to ask them actually, or do you want me to read it? I need to allow her mic. Hold on.
Just done that.
Oh no, you've done that.
Right. Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay, go for it. We can hear you.
Okay. I had two questions. One was about cycle training and whether you linked up with bikeability trainers. And the second question was the specific group, Joyriders, which we have a group here in Oxford, but obviously it's a huge group in London and elsewhere in the country. So those were my two questions.
Yeah, no, fantastic questions. So yeah, Joyriders, we're currently doing a lot of work with the London Cycling Campaign, and through them we're connecting with Joyriders. And again, this is going to be a huge part of our kind of our sort of follow on. So we hope to, you know, engage with women at our events, but then be able to refer them to their local Joyriders group or to local cycle training. So we're definitely kind of gathering all those connections. So it'd be really great to connect with the local group in Oxford, the Joyriders. So as we kind of build our kind of resources on our website and our network of events, we can connect with all these different groups. And yeah, the work we're doing with London Cycling Campaign at the moment, some of their members and instructors are going to come to, where does my phone go? Are going to come to our London event and kind of be on hand to offer advice and little mini confidence training sessions. That's what we really hope, that we could, it's not just a test ride, there's also some level of kind of confidence training involved at some of the events. So I think definitely like having those links, yeah, is really important. So yeah, it would be great to connect with anyone that you're working with locally in that respect.
Thank you. I'm completely blown over by the amount of stuff in the chat. In particular, there's an awful lot of information there, and you've clearly, Caz, have stimulated a lot of local thought. And speaking personally, I think we'd be delighted if you felt Oxford was a suitable place to come and set up a sort of demonstration day. And the sustainability, I'm not sure if Christian will correct me here, but has sometimes in Radcliffe Square, which is about the worst place to cycle because it's the most horrible cobbles. But if we can overcome that, I think the idea of combining it would be great.
Yeah. Combining with a bigger thing, because so the event we're doing in London, Earthfest, is a big sustainability event. So I think combining with other events works really well. And yeah, it would be great. So I think I'm talking to a councillor at Oxford, Louise Upton. Don't know if anyone. I mean, I have been talking to her. I haven't spoken to her for a little while, but yeah, I think it would be great for us to be able to connect with whoever it is at the council who we could talk about, you know, coming in and working with them on some capacity to bring the engagement programme and the events to Oxford.
Lucy, yes, I think that's a good suggestion to work in maybe with the critical mass, and also Alison suggests Broad Street would be a great place for people to finding it can get too busy. Well, Caz, as I knew it would be, you've been completely inspiring, and I just think one just very brief anecdote. A friend of mine was having trouble because his journey to work was getting worse and worse in the car, and I said, well, why not get an e-bike and just go over the hill to the station? And he said, wouldn't that be cheating? And I felt that mindset, we've moved on from that. E-bikes are the most wonderful, liberating invention and get so many more people. And all the evidence is that they do, people take at least as much exercise as they would have done, and probably more, and very comparable. Lucy? No, it's okay. So, you know, this is the next generation of cyclists, as you say, are going to be thinking much more that the car is irrelevant in urban settings. So I'll just check with Lucy and ask Alison if you'd like to thank Caz or just close the meeting. Anything from you, Lucy?
No, just echoing your thoughts, Andy. Thank you so much, Caz. It's been really interesting, and hopefully we can, it's the beginning of us working closely together to bring more e-bikes to Oxford. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you also to everyone for coming, and for bearing with us through our first Teams webinar, which I think has gone very well.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. And I think my contact details are somewhere, but I could make sure I get them to whoever, if you need to send them out, if anyone wants to get in contact and follow up with the conversations, like, yeah, reach out.
Yeah, great. Well, I'll close the meeting unless there's, I think we can close now. So thank you, everybody. And there has been a recording. We'll check with Caz, but that will be then on our website, if that's okay. And I think Caz has also said she'd make her slides available. So thank you. Yeah, all right. No well, as Lucy says, thanks to everybody for coming along and our questioners for contributing. All the best. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.